Well, Happy New Year. It is, I haven't written 2013 yet. Have you written 2012 and then marked it out and made it 2013? I haven't even written it out. I don't think I've even done 2013 yet. I think I'm still in 2003. Actually, I'm still like in 1999. I'm partying like it's 1999. So I saw that you already made and wrote your New Year's resolutions. Congratulations, everyone. That's great. So I was looking to see what common New Year's resolutions there are. What kind of things are normally made as New Year's resolutions. You know what you think every year you're going to do. Well, you're going to start buying Christmas presents in January for one thing, but you can just throw that one out the window because you know you're not going to do that. You're going to be out there Christmas Eve buying Christmas presents like you do every year. But the number one, okay, you can tell me this. What's the number one resolution people make? Lose weight. Exactly. Lose weight. Lose weight. That's the one that most people do. I want to tell you what the top 10 are. Yeah. Number 1 is lose weight. Go to the gym. Number 2 is get organized. Number 3, spend less, save more. Number 4, enjoy life to the fullest. Yeah. Okay. Number 5, staying fit and healthy. Yeah. Number 6, learn something exciting. Number 7, quit smoking. Number 8, help others achieve their dreams. Number 9, fall in love. Fall in love. Number 10, spend more time with family. Those are the top 10 resolutions that people make, apparently, according to somebody that checks those things. So it also said that 45% of Americans make New Year's resolutions. 45%. Okay, how many people in the room made a New Year's resolution? Less than 45% of us. Okay. And it says the percentage of people who are successful in achieving their resolution. What do you think the percentage is?
10%.
What?
2. 10.
1.
5. 2.
10.
0.5. 21%.
8.
You have no faith in people.
69%.
52.
Wow.
It's actually 8.
Yes.
8% of the people who make a New Year's resolution actually keep it right. So that means we're all going to weigh the same thing next January. We're not going to be any more organized. We're not going to have any more money saved. Life's going to be in 2014 January just like it is this year. Well, according to statistics, if you make these resolutions and you're depending on making a resolution and keeping it to change your life, then your life's not going to change, according to this. This was kind of interesting. After the first week of January, 25% of the people have already broken their resolution. 25% of the people who said, I'm going to do this year, by the end of the first week, you've already blown it. That's probably the people who said they were going to quit smoking or spend more time with their family. Because you can't do both.
Smoke away.
It's a joke. And by the end of 6 months, 54% of the people have even quit trying. By the end of June, half of us will forget we even made a resolution. So statistically, life's going to be pretty much the same next year as it is this year. But you know what the video says right here is really the truth. We don't have to depend on a resolution. We don't have to depend on our willpower to change our lives. There's a different power that we can rely on that is greater than our own willpower. In fact, the wisest man who ever lived. I'm just waiting for the names that you're thinking of. Who's the wisest man to ever live?
Jesus.
Let's go with Solomon, okay? Let's just go with Solomon. Let's pretend it's Solomon. I know we're going to get everything from Obama to I don't know who. So let's just go with Solomon. Solomon said this, that when the world's falling apart, when your life's falling apart, when things are not going the way you want them to, when everything has turned upside down, there's something else that you can hold on to. And he wrote this in the book that he whined in, you know, the whining book. It's called Lamentations. You know, Lamentations, when you lament. It's the wisest man's crying book. But he said this, through the Lord's mercies we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I hope in him. So in the message, I want to read this to you from the message. I like this. It says, God's loyal love couldn't have run out. His merciful love couldn't have dried up. They're created new every morning. So there's no end to them. How great is his faithfulness. I'm sticking with God. I say it over and over. He's all I got left. So look around. What he says is the absolute truth. What are you going to depend on? If you're going to change your life, if you want 2013 to be a great year, if you want something in your life to be better than it was in 2012, if you're ready to let go of something that you were hanging on to in 2012 that was holding you back or dragging you down, or life has thrown you a curveball and you're standing at a place, a crossroads, where you're trying to decide which way do I go. What are you going to depend on? Are you going to depend on the government to make the right decision for you? Are you going to depend on the economy? Are you going to depend on your family? Are you going to depend on your friends? Are you going to depend on your job or your paycheck or your checking account? Because all of those things can change in a moment's notice. Every one of those things can change. And you're not even expecting it. And they can all be gone. But this verse, in this verse he says this, he says, the Lord is my portion. Do you know what that means, your portion? That means the Lord is his inheritance or his prize. At the end of the day, the thing that I'm going for, what I'm going to receive at the end of this day, what I have left is him. What's left when everything else is gone is Jesus. The Lord is my portion, my inheritance, my lot in life, my goal, my prize. What I want at the end of the day is Jesus. And his purpose for me, his plan for my life. Because everything else comes and goes. Everything else is up and down. But he is the only thing that is dependable and steadfast. Jesus is dependable. Great is his faithfulness, because his love for us is new every morning. You don't have to wait for a mark on the calendar to say it's January 1st of a new year to start over. You can start over any day of any year. Today, whatever today is, January 6th. Lee, what's your calendar say? Okay. Pick a date. It doesn't matter. January 6th. On January 6th, you can have a new start today. You can push the reboot button today and start over. And it doesn't matter if it's January 6th or if it's March the 30th or if, 30 days in March, or if it's September. It doesn't matter. Every day, the mercies of the Lord and his love for us is new again. He creates a whole new batch of love for us every morning. We wake up to nothing's depleted from the storehouse that he has for us every morning. And suppose you go to work tomorrow and find out you've been laid off. It's happened to me about 5 years ago. I went to work, and the owner of the company called me into his office, and he said, you know, we've been having some layoffs, and I just have to tell you today's your day. Completely out of the blue. I was not expecting it. I knew there had been layoffs because I had laid off about 50 people. But I didn't expect that my name was going to be the next one on the list. When he called me into his office that morning, the last thing I expected to hear was that my job was over. But it was. No fanfare, no severance package, no thank you, just see ya. So what if your life changed that drastically tomorrow? And if you're depending on your job, then what's going to happen? Or suppose that sometime in this coming year, you lose a spouse. They walk away or pass away. Completely unexpected, something that you don't plan for, you don't want to happen. You never want to see that happen. But if that person is the center of your life, and you're depending solely on them for your happiness or for your future, what's going to happen when that changes? Lord knows the economy is up and down like crazy, but suppose we went through another recession like we've all experienced recently, or even like we experienced back in the 70s, those of us who were alive. I know like 3 of us in the room, but I wouldn't count on it. Well, that's, you know, I mean, if you think about it, in 1975, I think it was 75, I remember sitting in a line waiting to get gas. The line was out in the street, down the street. You had to wait forever to get gas, and then they started rationing it, and you could only buy it on certain days of the week, depending on what your tag number was. So whatever your tag number ended with or started with or something, you could go on Tuesdays, Thursdays, or you could go on Mondays or whatever. But they had it figured all out so that you could get gas at some point during the week, and hopefully you didn't run out on your day that you couldn't buy any. If you're depending on the economy for your stability or for your coming year's happiness or success, I wouldn't put too much stock in that, because it can be gone in a moment. Or what if in 2013 your deepest, darkest secret was revealed to the world? Dun dun dun! We need sound effects. You know, the thing that you keep covering over, the thing that you pretend isn't happening. I don't do that. You know, whatever that is, or maybe it's something from your past that keeps sneaking up behind you. And one of these days it's just going to be out there. The world's going to know it. What if this is that year? And right in the middle of your peaceful life, all of a sudden, your world is turned upside down. There's a woman in the Bible that happened to, actually. And we don't know a whole lot about her, so I'm not going to try to paint too big of a picture here, except for what the Bible says. But she was living her life, which wasn't a good one. But she was living her life, and one day she was confronted with the sinfulness of her life, with a bunch of people who were judgmental and condemning and finger pointing and even murderous. Because, you know, there are people who are so good that they think sinners should be killed because they're so good. You know those people? I know you're getting depressed already, right? You're thinking, okay, Pastor Tony, you're supposed to be telling us how to have a good 2013, and I'm getting all depressed here. But I want to tell you that today you have a chance to shift your focus, to shift the center of your life from any of those things or any other thing that that you tend to hold on to or place in the center of your world, and place your trust in Jesus that never will fail you. From John chapter 8, we're going to start reading in verse 2. It's a story you've probably heard, but we're going to read starting with verse 2 of John chapter 8. It says, "At dawn, Jesus appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them." Now, what happens when a teacher stands up to teach? Well, I know at Transformation House everybody pulls out their phones. But I mean, in a normal setting, when a teacher stands up to, and I'm okay with that, okay, as long as you're like, tweeting everything I'm saying. Just give me credit for it. No, it's the Bible, I can't take credit. But what happens when a teacher stands up to teach?
People still pull out their phones. It's not as noticeable.
Okay, so let's say 2,000 years ago.
They listen.
when the teacher stood up to teach. I bet that was really annoying. It was really hard to teach with everybody chiseling in the stones while I'm trying to talk.
Chiseling in class.
Teachers this generation.
So, when they stood up to teach, thank you, Amber, they actually paid attention. Because one of their New Year's resolutions was to learn something new this year. So, when Jesus stood up to teach, he's in the temple, okay? He's in the temple, and it says that people were gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. Well, he wasn't the only teacher in the story, okay? Because the next verse says, the teachers of the law, which wasn't Jesus, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing Jesus. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, Lord," she said. And Jesus said to her, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Then Jesus spoke to them again, saying, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life." Now, this story is pretty familiar to us. If you've read the Bible much or you've been in Sunday school much, you know the story. But sometimes we really miss that last verse. We stop the story when Jesus says to the woman, "I don't condemn you either, now go and sin no more." But Jesus went right back to teaching. And Jesus never taught without a purpose. He never said anything without a purpose. And he never just, jumped from one subject to another. What he says next has to do with this whole story. The next thing that he says is, "I am the light of the world, and he who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life." See, we tend to focus on what he said to the woman as, okay, I'm not condemning you now, go and stop sinning. And we tend to focus on behavior. We focus on her behavior. He told her to stop doing this, and he did. But that wasn't his focus. That was pointing her in the right direction. The focus still is to come back to Jesus. The focus is still to follow him. The focus is still that he is the light of life. He wants to change your whole life, not just your behavior. Not just the way you act. Not just the things you do. It's not about behavior. It's about who you're in relationship with. Are you walking in relationship with him? And he says to the people, Excuse me. I'm the light of the world. And whoever follows me will not walk in darkness. Can you imagine that this woman had been living in darkness? Think about it. At least this one time, I'm not trying to paint her life story because I don't know her life story, but at least this one time she was committing adultery. Not something you usually do out in public, something you do in secret, something that is done hidden in dark places. Jesus said this about the woman and about all the people who are around him. I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not live in darkness, but will have light, the light of life. What Jesus offers us isn't just about how we act, but it's really about our whole life. Jesus isn't concerned just about changing. Coming to Jesus isn't just about stopping this and starting this, but it really is about living in relationship with him. I want Jesus in my life. I want his purpose for my life. I want what he says his will for my life is. And whatever that is, that's what I want for 2013. What I want in this coming year is what Jesus has for me. Some people, so I want to go here. Well, yeah, let me just say this. Let me just make all of you happy. YOLO is a lie. I'm just going to throw that out there. I said it. YOLO. YOLO. You only live once.
Oh, that was like some TV character.
It's a lie. Because the truth is, okay, don't lose me. The truth is, there is another life after this one. This is not the only life you live. You don't only live once. There's an eternal life that comes after this one. Now, some people focus so much on one of our lives that they over-focus on that one at the expense of the other one. I mean, seriously, there are some people that I've known in my lifetime who were so focused on heaven. I mean, and all they talked about was heaven, 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 heaven. I'm going to get a gold heart. No, you're not. I'm going to get wings. No, you're not. You're not getting a halo. One of these days we're going to have to talk about some of that heaven stuff. But they talked about that so much that they didn't do anything here. I mean, they were worthless, and they didn't help anybody. They weren't interested in helping anybody who was in need because their focus was just heaven, 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 heaven. And then there are other people who are so focused on the things of this world and the things of this life and all those things that we've talked about, like our checking account or making a living or whatever. And our focus is so much there that we don't realize that our life is making an eternal impact on the people around us. The people who live around you are being impacted for eternity by the choices that you make. The decisions that you make affect the people around you. It's not just all about you, but they affect the people who are around you. Jesus said that he's the light of life. What he offers to us is to not just eternal life. That's the great benefit, that we are going to live forever. But he offers us a full life now. Jesus says, I've come that you can have life, and abundant life, a full life, a fully enlightened life. You can live a life that's full of the knowledge of Jesus and full of his light, and not hide in the darkness and not worry about what's going to catch up with you from your past, or not worry about, am I going to be able to make the house payment or the rent payment or the car payment or whatever. When our focus is where Jesus puts our focus. when we live our life in accordance to His will for us, it's a different kind of life. No, most of us in this room have experienced the before and after of living for Jesus. And we know that before Jesus, our life was very different from after Jesus. And, and if it's not, then I think we probably should go back to the place where we met Him and maybe start over. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Lord, my life isn't any different than it was before. I'm still the same. Nothing's changed. Then you probably don't know Him very well. Because when you know Him, you're going to walk with Him. You're going to walk in that light. The life that He gives you is going to be a different life than you had before. Listen to His words. He said this, I am the light of the world. And I know some people don't believe that. But it is the absolute truth that Jesus is the light of the world. Because when you look at the things around us and the way the world is going, you can see that it gets darker and darker in many places. Many areas of society is moving toward darkness instead of toward light. There's in American society, there's a phenomenon going on right now. I really think is going to be short-lived. I really do. And that is, excuse me, that is where Christian faith is being downplayed a lot. You know why? Because a lot of people who claim to be Christians have no faith. They don't live in faith. They have no power. They don't let Jesus live through them. They don't let Jesus love through them. They don't act like Jesus. They talk a lot of religious talk. They talk about the Bible, or they talk about Jesus, or they talk about church, but they don't live out the things that they say they believe. Well, when your life is in conflict with your words, then who wants to believe you? Who's going to listen to you? Who's going to follow you? Who's going to want what you have? But when you walk in integrity, you walk in the light, when you walk in integrity with Jesus and you live according to His Word, then you're going to change the world around you. You're going to make an impact. The people around you are going to want to have what you have. Because, frankly, when the world falls apart, this is why I think this is short-lived. Because when the world falls apart, you want to go to what's true. So where do you go? What's true in your life? When your world falls apart, what is true? When a school full of children were murdered, where did they go? They started having prayer meetings every night at the churches in town. Why? Because the only hope that we have in this life is the hope we find in Jesus. The only thing that we have that lasts for eternity is our life in Jesus. And apart from that, we're pretty hopeless people. But if we can see Jesus the way He is, if we can see Jesus and hear His words the way He speaks them to us, if we could be in that moment when Jesus is sitting at the temple trying to teach the people, and there's a commotion when the people come in, the other teachers and the Pharisees come in, and they bring this woman and they stand her up in front of the crowd. How would you like to be that woman? Standing up in front of the crowd saying, look, this woman sinned. We just caught her in the act of adultery. I have a question. Where's the man that was with her? She didn't do it by herself. We don't know anything about him. They weren't about to stone him, were they? He might have been one of the ones that brought her. One of the Pharisees or teachers. But if we could see Jesus, if we could see His face, if we could hear His words, if we could hear Him speak to us individually, if He would look at us in our time of need, when we've been stood up in front of the crowd, and maybe it wasn't because of our sin, maybe it was in our hurt, or in our pain, or in a loss, or maybe we just lost our job, or our spouse, or our checking account, or our last dime is gone and we don't know how we're going to pay for anything. And we're stood up in front of a crowd and the people say, what are we going to do with her? How does Jesus respond to us? How does Jesus look at you? What's the look in his eyes when he sees you? What does he say to you? I want to show you. I want us to watch this video clip. I want you to look at Jesus' face.
The kingdom of